Welcome to what we are going to call episode 7 of the Boots Off podcast. Thanks for sticking with us each month. Today we hear from someone who found this podcast on LinkedIn. He said, "Do you mind if I send you a copy of my book?" I was like, sure, why not? It's called Atten-Hut, 10 Things Veterans Should Know Before They Enter the Civilian Workforce. And with that, I knew this was a guy I wanted to talk to and someone who would be good for listeners to hear from. His name is Maury Castaneda. He's a retired Navy submarine officer, prior enlisted. He served 22 years, holds a bachelor's in workforce education and development and 2 masters, one in education and another in economics. Smart man, and he's doing a lot of good work with this book. Join us for this next hour and see what you think. This is Boots Off with our guest, Maury Castaneda.
Boots off, what's up?
I'm glad we were able to get in touch here because it looks like we're pretty much trying to do the same thing, reach the same audiences with our products.
Yeah.
Me with this Boots Off podcast, you with your book, Atten-Hut.
Yeah.
I read it. It's very informative, humorous in parts. You said it yourself, a lot of sarcasm, and it really brings up a lot of good points. You might say it's not a how-to book,
Sure.
not an advice column, but it brings up so many things that people need to consider. So I was really looking forward to having you on because of these similarities we share. But first, I want to get into a bit of your background.
Yeah.
What led you into the military initially?
Yeah, it's kind of a boring story, actually, right, when you think about it, right? So my dad was, I was just a regular dude from Southern California, right? I grew up in down in Riverside, the Covina area, and I played a lot of baseball, a lot of soccer. And, I just kind of grew up thinking I was always going to be a professional baseball player, right? Right until I was around 17 years old or so, right? And I played some good ball. But my dad was in the Navy from 70 to 74, and after he got out during the Vietnam time, so he spoke highly of the Navy. He was an electrician. He got out and went to work for the railroad. I was born shortly thereafter, and he was an electrician, right? He was an electrician like he was in the Navy, like he was for the railroad. So my exposure to what was normal was kind of this, you go learn a trade, you go get a job. And my dad was pretty successful. He had a little side business on the side, electric. He was doing some residential troubleshooting, things like that. So, we had a lot of good stuff, nice things. I mean, I'm just an average middle class dude. And the way my dad did it seemed like a pretty easy way to do it. He didn't go to college. So anyway, so I'm playing baseball and whatever else. And time comes, like, it's like, oh, I'm about to graduate and doesn't look like I'm going to play baseball anymore. What do I got to do? Well, the only influence that I really had outside of college, of baseball, was in fact the military. And I think deep down, I always knew that, like, if this baseball thing didn't work out, that the Navy was going to be okay because it provided for my dad. So I just decided one day, all right, I got a backup plan, so I'm going to go talk to the Navy guy. And he was on campus at my school, and it just seemed right. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. This was back in the early 90s or late, it's been early 90s. And so it was Navy full speed ahead, right? And they were trying to recruit all these nuclear trained guys. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that because that's the smartest people. That's what I want to do. And they give a lot of money for that. And I want to be on a submarine. I totally wanted to be on a submarine. You could have talked me into anything. The only thing you couldn't have talked me out of was being on a submarine. I thought they were cool. And maybe it seems funny, but maybe the fascination was just, well, there's 2 reasons. One is that it's goofy. I'm probably going to admit it, but I fell in love with submarines when I was like 6 years old when I went to Disneyland, right? And just the fact that you can go underwater and check stuff out. And then the other thing was that my dad spoke highly of submariners. And honestly, because when he was in Pearl Harbor, the submarine base had a baseball team. So like, oh, so they play baseball in the submarine force. I'm going to do that.
It's awesome.
So I did it. Went, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to become a nuke, or actually, fortunately, as far as I'm concerned. I had a guardian angel looking out for me that didn't let one of my line scores on my ASVAB line up so that I could have, I think it's like, there's like A and B or whatever, it's like, an AE and an ME or something. And one of them was just under the threshold. So I was that pain in the butt person signing up. So I really want to do this. I'm going to do nothing. And so they said, fine. So they had people coming to my house. And what do we got to do? I want to be a nuke really bad. And so they're like, okay, fine. We'll go ahead and let you take it again. But took the test again. And I know I have a guardian angel or Neptune or whoever it was that didn't want me to be a nuke because now my scores were opposite. So whatever one I was just under the threshold, I went the other way. So I raised the other one but dropped the other one. So at that point, like, all right, thanks, but no thanks. Can I still be on a submarine? They're like, yeah. So I go, let's do it.
Wow. It's funny. The last guy I had on this podcast, a good friend of mine, who now he's up in Everett, Washington. He's a radio DJ up there. He started out on submarines,
Yeah.
and he did not want to be there.
Oh, really?
He was it a machinist or something like
Yeah.
that? Yeah, he was a machinist on subs, and he was terrified the entire
really?
time.
I was probably the opposite. I was like, I couldn't get down that tube fast enough. So it was cool.
How long were you in that field as enlisted?
I did just over 11 years. Let's see. I got commissioned in June. So 11 years. Yeah.
Okay. You did 11 years, and then you commissioned after that.
Right.
I did 11 years, and I separated to the reserve myself.
Right.
So that's enough active duty time for me.
Right.
What was it about commissioning that you wanted to get into that path, or was it just an opportunity that presented itself? How'd that work out?
So this was actually pretty cool, right? And it's one of the reasons why, and it's kind of the genesis for the book. If you actually peeled the onion and figure out where it's at, is I had a ton of mentors, as I'm sure you did. Now all of us that are that are vets did. While your time in there, people trying to direct you the right way or a different way. I was very fortunate to have some great leaders, both enlisted and officer. And when I was on my first boat, so I went to submarine school in Connecticut right after boot camp. This was in, I guess, 94. And I went to my first submarine, which was the USS Louisville out of Pearl Harbor, which was awesome. What a great ship, right? Great people. I'm still friends with those people. That 4 years and some change on that boat was probably totally molded me into the adult that I am outside of what my parents taught me, the relationships that I built there. But to answer your question, it was I saw what the officers can do, and the commissioning program in which I did, which was limited duty, which essentially it's almost more people probably familiar with the warrant officer program, right? Where you're enlisted and the next day you come into work and you're commissioned. Well, it's the same thing, except you get to come in at an O1E rank, O2E rank. So essentially, one day I went into work and I was enlisted. The next day, later on that afternoon, people were saluting me. So it's pretty cool. But my bosses, so I had a couple of E6s when I was an E4, E5 on the Louisville that had actually done this program. And so they were out in front of me, and I was watching all the great things they were doing. And I was an electronics technician, right? I was up front. I worked with the periscopes and the antennas and stuff like that. And I really dug that job. And I just had fun doing it. Probably annoyingly actually, I know it's annoyingly to my friends that were on the same. Everybody's getting out your first tour. Like, this sucks. I'm getting out. And I was kind of like, yeah, it sucks. Not really. This is cool. I think I'm gonna stay and do it. Right? This is actually awesome. I don't understand why these guys don't get it. But and so we joke about that now. I was out of all my friends that I had, barracks mates and everything, they all got out except me. And but they would all tell you they saw that coming from probably day 2, right? But anyways, so these guys, I love that portion of it. And so the limited duty made you an expert, a Mustang, right? Makes you were able to work in that field as a technical expert in that in communication, which my bosses had done, and I knew if they were good and they had taught me that I'm next in line. And I know what I'm talking about, and I could shape policy and do things for submarines and submarine communications and those things. This is where I want to be. So that's why I did it, and it was probably one of the best decisions in my life. It was awesome.
You were a mentee for many years, and then did you turn into more and more of a mentor as you commissioned?
Oh yeah, I would say even before that. The submarine force, right? Everybody will tell you whatever you did is the best, the most elite, right? If you're a SEAL, you're elite, which probably is true, right? And Rangers, all those guys.
Oh yeah.
PJs, they're all tough.
I'm not going to argue that.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with those guys. They're tough, but we're a different kind of tough, if you will, right? We're on a different spectrum of toughness. But in seriousness, the submarine force has this program where we call it a sponsor back probably to be more politically correct, but you had a CDAD, right? And now women on submarines, so I guess I actually you could have a C parent or something, whatever, to be politically correct. But I'm not. It's not meant to be funny, but you're assigned somebody when you come on board. So about at the E4, senior E4, E5 rank, once you have your pin and you've been on board for a while, a submarine is foreign to someone who's never been on it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have someone that shows you. Once the tube closes, right, the hatches are sealed, and you're underwater, it's all 120 or 110 or 140 people, whatever you're taking with you, that are either going to live or die. You're going to fight the ship. You have to depend on one another. So the best way to learn is essentially, if you don't want to die, you better teach a new person how to save you, because you're going to want to go to sleep at some point. At some point, they're going to be awake while you're asleep, right? And that's kind of the mantra in which we live, right? So 2/3 of the boat are asleep or not working. 1/3's up. They need to be able to make the initial damage control efforts to get everybody else to fight the ship. So it's kind of you need to train your relief. You need to train the next people. So you become a mentor by being on board. So you're assigned. So to answer your question, when I was at E4, E5, I started getting my own C-pups, is what we would refer to them, right? So someone new, and they would follow you around. You tell them, you teach them, and do that. But yeah, absolutely. As I became an officer, that's probably my favorite thing that being a Mustang was all about, was talking to young people and helping them reach whatever goal it was, whether it was to, do your 4 years and get out and, go to college. Well, let's figure out how we're going to save for money and what you're going to do. If it's to make a career, if it's to get commissioned, if it's to make E7, E8, let me help you. And I think that was the most valuable. I still look back. I still get phone calls. I've been retired now for about 1.5 years, or 2 years, probably closer to 2 years. And I still get phone calls. Man, you talk about warming the heart when I get someone that's, like, hey, sir, how you doing? Like, first, don't call me sir. I'm doing great. How are you? Right? I'm out now, so it's cool. My name's Maury. But how can I help you? And it's always nice to, sit there and say, well, maybe you should talk to your LPO, talk to your boss, or, or whatever. So yeah, totally mentor.
Yeah, that was always my favorite part as well, and it still is. I hated to see people take the wrong turns, and not realize possible mistakes they were making, and when they could open up to you and you were able to help, like it was always a good feeling.
Yeah. One of the things about being an officer that I liked was that you can kind of jerk someone back into place too. If you see one of the kids working for you, I guess the calm kids are shouldn't, right? One of the sailors working for you, you could walk up and, hey, don't be an idiot. What are you doing? That's stupid. I mean, you could literally talk to someone that way if you had that rapport. Not, you're being a big dummy right now. Come talk to me. We need to go to lunch. We need to figure something out. And I addressed that a little bit in the book, but yeah, you can't do that in the civilian sector.
Yeah, and you see, that was a point that I wanted to ask about. It's a Navy thing, shipmate.
Yeah.
Now, I understand you say it's a term of endearment in the book. There's
Sometimes.
sometimes, okay, that's
Right.
what I want to get to. There was a Navy chief that I worked for. I was stationed with American Forces Network for 4 years, and so it was all DoD. I had worked with Marines, sailors, soldiers every now and then,
Right.
and I had this Navy chief that one time we had a commander come over,
Mm-hmm.
a Navy commander. He came to visit us and called him shipmate, and he took offense to that.
Right.
And I was like, wait, isn't that a good thing? I don't think he meant any harm by this.
Yeah, I think it's go with a frame of mind, right? Depending, it's got a lot of meanings behind it. You could be a shipmate. Hey, shipmate. It depends on the term and the tone. And
Sure.
what I found is I really hated it. It's interesting that you bring it up. Is that I didn't want to be anybody's shipmate. Actually, when I was in boot camp, what I thought was really cool was that my company commander, now RDC, so essentially the person that wears a red rope and makes you do push-ups, whatever, depending on your military service, drill sergeant, whatever. He didn't let us call each other shipmate, right? Because what do you know about being on a ship? So you guys are mates. Which I
Right.
think is probably even more condescending, right? We're all mates. Okay, fine. So we had to call each other mate, which whatever. But yeah, so the term could be condescending. I have had it at times where oh, you just shipmated me or hook a shipmate up. But I found as I got older that it actually meant something to me. Like when I would talk to younger sailors, I would be, hey, shipmate, come on, let me help you out a second. But then you also there, hey, shipmate, ain't happening. So it depends on the tone, depends on where you're at. So I don't know, whatever.
So were you on subs that entire time?
Yeah, I mean, if I wasn't on a submarine, I was doing some support until my last tour, when I decided I was going to retire and everything. I got sent to recruiting, so that was fun. My last 3 years was in recruiting.
There
Yeah.
you go. All right. So we were talking about mentoring and being a mentee. Were there any times, any experiences you recall that really stick out as inspiring, or anything that helped you develop a bit?
So without question, um, I refer to them other people. I always try to talk to myself, like, how do I help people? And so I came up with this term, just a Mauryism that I did to talk to the man in the mirror. about monumental conversations, and you never know when you're going to have them. But I had these monumental conversations with some of my bosses, and the first one came when I was my whole initial goal. Like when you asked me when I was going to retire, when I was going to join the Navy, I literally was going to do 4 years. I told my mom I'll be back. When I left the door, and I was like, I'm doing 4 years. I'm going to do my push-ups and sit-ups, and I get yelled at boot camp. I'm going to go do good at this A school thing or whatever, learn about being on a submarine. Then I'm coming home, and I'm going to go to college, and I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to use that GI Bill that they got, and that's what I'm going to do. Well, around right before I was supposed to get out after my first tour, so I'm on the Louisville, and an E6 buddy of mine, my boss essentially, right, my LPO, my leading petty officer, we were getting ready to go on deployment, and so they're trying to figure out the manning for the deployment, and I was supposed to get out in the middle. So he wants to know if I'm staying in or getting out, and I need to kind of figure it out with the quickness. And so I said, well, can I at least extend for the deployment? Because I want to do this. I'm having fun. Yeah, it's fine, but you still got to figure it out. So we're sitting down, and I can remember this to this day, and he probably does not even remember having this conversation. And he tells me, what are you going to do? I mean, what are you going to do with your life? And so my goal was, I'm going to get out and be a teacher. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be a teacher. I learned so much from being on the sports field, both in baseball and soccer. And my coaches were so impactful in my life that I had this great tour on the Louisville. And if I can give back this to a bunch of high school kids so that they don't mess up and teach them about leadership and teach them about work ethic and teamwork, they will be successful people just like I was on this submarine. And so I tell him that's what I'm going to do. So he says, so essentially you're going to go to school at night. You're going to work a minimum wage job, live with your parents until you become a teacher. And when he said it like that, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. But that didn't sound the way I was thinking. And so he says, okay, why don't you re-enlist? There's a little money for enlistment bonuses, and go to a shore duty, a Navy shore duty, right? So, and then, so you won't go to sea. Oddly enough, the military encourages you to go to college. There's all kinds of benefits for you. Go get tuition assistance, so your college will be cheaper. Go and get your degree, and then get out. You'll still get your E5. You'll get a housing allowance. You'll get your pay as an E5, which is more than minimum wage. Why are you getting this? Doesn't make sense to me. And so I was just in the right frame of mind for that. I walked off, and about 2 minutes later, I just decided, he's right. He's right. This is dumb. I'm staying in. Mm-hmm. So I always thought back to myself is that I need to be cautious, but at the same time, speak from the gut and just tell these people what I'm thinking, because if it is dumb, he just completely called me on my idea. Essentially what he said was, you're being stupid. If that's what you want to do, this is wrong. And this is what you should do. But he didn't tell me that what I should do. He just explained what it was. So that, without a doubt, was a huge conversation. It sent me to Groton Submarine School, back to submarine school, now to be an instructor. And that's essentially where the writing and everything for the book came. I went to school at Southern Illinois there, and I got my degree, my bachelor's degree. I had finished in such a quick amount of time that I was able to pursue a master's. So now I was set up, right? So now at this 8-year mark, when I'm out at my 8 years and some change, I'll have a master's degree because I just went to school full time. My wife was super supportive of me going at night. And not only that, I was killing it as an instructor because you could tell I like to talk, right? And so I'm teaching these guys. So now I'm giving back, right? I'm totally mentoring. Every class I get is a bunch of new sailors that are learning electronics, learning what it's like to be on a submarine. And so I'm just in heaven. I'm teaching kids. I'm going to school. I'm learning. And so I'm the instructor of the year. 1 year, I'm a master training specialist. I'm just killing it. And I'm getting out. I got my master's, and now I'm going to go teach, man. I'm going to do this troops to teachers thing, or I'm going to figure it out. But I'm good. Saved up money, and another monumental conversation comes in. Shipmate, right? Shipmate, yeah. Why would you get out? Right? This division officer, this O2 comes up to me as my boss. Here's the O2. So why would you get out? I'm like, well, I'm thinking this is what I do. That's an excellent plan, man. That's a great plan. But did you know that you can actually make more money if you stay in the Navy? Have you heard of the limited duty officer program? Yeah, I have. As a matter of fact, my boss and my boss's boss, so my CDAD and my old LPO both have applied for this program, and they're both ensigns. You might know them, and they did kind of know each other just through the small network being the submarine force or military in general. And yeah, so he said, you should apply for that. Well, but then I got to re-enlist to apply for that, and one more. So then he lays out the plan. Dude, you're an E6. You're making money. We're going to pay for you to move anywhere. You get 4 weeks vacation, right? 30 days a year. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get that. Why don't you try for this management job? It's essentially management. He broke it down in civilian terms. You're applying for a management job. If you don't get it, you've got 12 years in. You'll get out after the 4 years. You have been an LPO, you'll get leadership experience, right? Because now you're going back as an E6. You're gonna get to pick your coast, probably your home port, maybe even darn right the submarine. Why wouldn't you take that? You can go anywhere that the Navy wants to send you. Why are you passing all this down for a chance to make a lot of money as an officer, as an O1E? So I thought about it. Like, damn, right, right. He's right. Come this time, I talk it over with my wife and whatever else, and like, yeah, 4 more years isn't that bad. We can go back to Hawaii. We really liked Hawaii. Let's go. So I went.
Every time it's 4 more years, right?
Yeah, just 4 more, and I got to go. And if it doesn't work out, then I'm done. The only thing that made me nervous about it was that the LDO commitment is a 10-year commitment. So I'm thinking I'm on this side of 10. If I get it now, I really can just do my 20. So now that is a little different. But, I'll make 03, maybe 04 if things work. Okay, so now I'm starting to think long term. And that was like the first time I thought maybe this could be a career. And if it isn't, then I'll just walk at 12 and everything will be good. I still won't be 30 yet. It'll be awesome. And well, sure as hell, I got selected. So I go, let's keep it real. Let's go. And the rest was history after that.
So through all that,
well,
what were you going to teach?
Oh, I don't know.
You just wanted to go be a teacher?
I don't know. Well, yeah. I wanted. Well, truthfully, probably PE is what I really wanted to do. Right? I wanted to be that cool PE coach to coach baseball, and didn't do anything, and had fun coaching.
Yeah, and that's where the money is too in all these high schools. It's always in sports,
Yep. That's true.
Is there anything that you would have changed along the way? You seem like you had some set paths that didn't necessarily get roadblocked, but you took some detours, some other forks in the road. But throughout all of that, anything you would have changed, any learning experiences there?
Man, I don't know. I think I say I've had. It's not the first time someone has asked me. Some of my, whatever you want to call them, mentor sessions or what I think might be monumental conversations for sailors that I dealt with. They would ask me, "Is there anything different you would do?" And my CO, when I retired, great guy, he asked me, "Is there, all right, man? Was there anything different you would do? Is there anything?" And man, I don't think so, dude. I mean, my career was so awesome. There was bad days. There was things. I don't know. Maybe I would have tried to deploy more. I didn't get as many deployments in as I wanted to get in. It seemed like I was in the shipyard a lot for both my boats and things. But that's just the roll of the dice. I say that when probably go, man. If you would ask me in a parallel universe, I probably would have found a ship that didn't deploy as much. But man, no, I think I was very, very fortunate, which is another reason why I wrote the book. Is that I just so damn lucky, so lucky. I think I made a lot of right decisions, but I had so much help. Right, and I couldn't have got where I was at with the help I got. I don't know what I'm missing if I did, if there is something to change.
So then when retirement came, were you ready for that? Did you know that was the moment to retire? Or?
Yeah. I think a good buddy of mine had retired, and I was kicking it around, right, if what I wanted to do. And some of it was a financial decision to get out, right, because there comes a point where you can make a lot of money doing, you're essentially could be double dipping and doing things. So part of that weighed in a little bit. But I also have 2 small kids now, right? And so when I retired, I had kids later in my career there. So I have now a 10 and about to be 8-year-old. So when I retired a couple of years ago, they were small. And the next job that I was going to take was going to put me out to sea. I was going to have to go back to sea of some sort. And I went to a retirement of a buddy of mine who was also who had got commissioned, and we had crossed paths a couple of times. And he said something, and I'm going to butcher it, but he just said that something along the lines, the sacrifice wasn't, the mission wasn't worth the sacrifice anymore. And it really resonated with me. It was like, everybody gets there. Everybody gets to a point where the mission, the sacrifices aren't worth it. And, I was having fun. I was on recruiting duty. I was able to coach my kids. Soccer, baseball. I was there. I was going to parent conferences and stuff, and I was like, "This is all right." This is, I didn't have to stand any more duty, and I knew that all that was going to come back into play. I was going to be back doing something, going back to sea. Was it worth it? And I think that's really what it was. The sacrifice wasn't worth the mission. And I think we all get there at some point.
And when did you consider first writing a book?
So that's a good question. I think when I told my friends that I was going to write a book, and anybody that knows me well would be like, "You got to be out of your mind. What is it, a coloring book?" But right? How many pictures does it have? But So when I got out, when I retired, I was very fortunate, man. I just been so lucky, and actually talking to you makes me really appreciate even all the help that I had then. Um, I was only unemployed for like 26 days, right? Theoretically, I retired July 1st, July 26th. I'm working, and I'm working at a good job. I got a manager job for Sacramento County, and I'm doing great things. And so I really only went 26 days. So before I even received my first retirement check, I was already getting another check from somebody else, and which is atypical, which I didn't really realize, which was somewhat atypical as far as getting the job that you want in the field that you want, doing what you want. Um, but anyways, whatever. I'd set myself up. Fast forward. So at that job, I start talking to people about. So my job's in training and development, or manager for training and development. So essentially, what I tell my military friends is, for the county, I manage all the GMT, all the compliance training. So like, hey, do your e-learning. You got to do this. You got to do that. I do that for the county, and I also develop leadership courses and things like that. And I have a team of people. Essentially, it's just the same thing. I have a group of trainers, and the trainers do a great job at facilitating leadership opportunities and coaching. Well, anyways, one of the things is we are, just like in the military, we're undermanned, we're understaffed. And so we had to contract out some coaches and other trainers. And I started talking to these people about executive coaching and things like that. And as I started talking to them, I'm like, man, this is what I do. This is where I am. So I enrolled in an executive development program, an executive coaching program, and got my certification. And one of the things that the guy that talked about was that you need to write. You need to write to get your message out there and write about what you're good at. So I was like, I'm going to write about leadership. I'm going to write about leadership. I've been exposed to tons of leaders. And as I'm writing this book on leadership, I'm trying to figure out what my actual philosophy is, because I realize it's just a little bit from this CEO and a little bit from this chief and a little bit from that guy. What do I really stand for? You know? And so I'm in the shower one day and I'm that's where I do most of my thinking. And I'm like, my next book I'm going to write is going to be about the transition process, because I was thinking about work and, why am I, the people that work for me don't see things a certain way, or why am I having trouble with this? And I address some of them in the book. It's like, I'm just going to write like, hey, dude, if I went back in the Navy, I'd be like, you wouldn't believe what's happening. I say do this, and people are like, nah, I think we're going to do this. And then, I think it's better if we do it this way. Like, wait, aren't I in charge? Well, you are, but you're not really, and we'll get it done this week. Well, I want it done today. Well, why do we need to get it done today? Like, and then you don't really have. So anyways, so I just need to write about that. I just need to get that out and let everybody know, like, warning, it's not as easy as you think. And so I came up with, like 12 or 13 little topics, and I started writing them down, and all of a sudden, like, this book's almost written.
Yeah.
I should write it. I should just get it down. My wife really encouraged me, and I have 12, 13 chapters, and then I started condensing and getting smarter about it. And in about 60 days, I had it. And the coach that I was using, the executive coach that was helping me through the process, he helped me through, the create space and the avenues for Amazon and things like that. And it was very, very simple. And so I would challenge anybody, if you have any aspirations to write a book, to hit me up, because it is super easy. There's a lot of books out there. There's people that shouldn't be writing books that are writing books.
Oh, right.
So, right. Now, I don't even know if I should be writing a book, but I did. But anyway, I kid, but that's really what it was. And so I just put it out, and I gave myself a goal. I'm going to be done by 2017. I need to have this book written and uploaded it to Amazon. And there it was.
Well, you did. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It's called Atten-Hut, 10 Things Veterans Should Know Before They Enter the Civilian Workforce. It's full of good information, but it's an easy read. The format, it's very conversational, People
Right.
can relate. I mean, if you're picking up this book, you're probably a veteran who has separated, or you're looking to separate. So you can definitely relate to a lot of the discussion within these pages. A lot of learning opportunities from starting back on the bottom rung of the ladder, when maybe you used to supervise a handful of individuals. That's something that I personally relate to almost too closely.
Right.
The difference in work ethic and leaving when the clock strikes 5 versus
that's something, I tell you.
Versus when the job is done. And then benefits that the military provides, leave versus vacation. It goes on. There's 10 different topics in here.
Keep going, man.
There's the integration versus the transition, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you say in the book is you realized you were trying to transfer into your civilian job.
Right.
And it wasn't working out. So what do you mean by that? And what had to change to make it successful?
Yeah, that was like a huge epiphany, right? You could probably tell from everything that I did. I took some advice from the people that were in charge, and then tried to make it my own and form it. So when I was in the Navy, right, everywhere I'd go, I was like, where are the problems? Especially when I became an officer or a leader, it's like, where are our deficiencies? What do we do well? Who's great? Who's struggling? And then let's figure out how we're going to increase production. We're going to increase, what we're doing to make our team the best. I always, and again, coming from that school of sport, if you will, baseball or soccer, is like, hey, I just got put on this team and I'm going to make it better. But I'm going to make it better through helping these people get better. And one quote that I say repeatedly, and I used to try to do that, was put people in a position to be successful, right? Find out where their strengths are. And in the civilian sector, I really had to call it Strength Finder. But I just didn't know. I thought I was a genius, but it's already out there. But seriously, put the people, if you're not good at that, get them off of there, put them in that area, and you have that flexibility. I don't know how many times, it was a few times where I would go and I would have a struggling E5 who didn't like doing this, wasn't good at that. It's like, well, can you do that? Yeah. And all of a sudden they start to flourish, they start to do things. So when I got to my civilian job, I look and I was like, well, what are we doing good? What are we doing bad? And like, okay, I got a grasp on it. Let's go ahead and fix those things. And there wasn't really a desire to like make that overnight change. Like, hey, the new guy's here, he wants to make that change. Like, well, that's a good idea. Maybe we'll start implementing some of that. It's like, well, I'm in charge. I kind of called the ball here. I kind of said we want to do that. And so I'm thinking in my mind, okay, you're not a lieutenant. You're not a lieutenant. You're not a lieutenant. Don't go off and say we're not doing this. Do not go off. But hey, how about we really try and do that? How about if you work on that? Okay, I'll get to it. What are you doing now? I mean, what's stopping you from doing that like today? Like, we can actually make some real good progress if you like decide that you want to get on board with me and do this today. And so, and I was very cognizant of not stepping on feelings. And I address it in the book too. It's like, I knew that there's some perceptions about me. I knew that people were probably waiting for me to yell or give a direction or, whatever else, or, he's going to go all military on me. Like, I think the subject, the top of the chapter is right. You're not a drill sergeant. So I think everybody was waiting for me to go off and, tell everybody to do things. So I knew that. I could feel it. I could sense it. And, they were just waiting to tell me, or maybe I perceive that. Maybe I'm going off, and maybe if they listen to this podcast, I'm like, it really wasn't like that. But I just felt like it wasn't a setup, but like they were waiting for the military guy to come out. So I realized, I was like, yeah, I know you asked how was the transfer. It's like, I'm not going anywhere. They're right to an extent. I'm here as long as I want to be here. I can leave tomorrow, which that kind of opened up. Like, I can quit. Holy cow, I can quit. If it sucks that bad, I can quit. Now, does it suck that bad? Right? And so I used to have those conversations. Does it suck that bad? No, it doesn't. Okay. So let's calm down. Let's figure out we're going to stay here longer than 3.5 years. All right. So now if we expand this thing to like a 10-year thing, can you empathize with them a little bit? Yeah. Okay. So we need to go from there. So that's what I meant by transferring. You try and make an impact in the job you're at. You get this thing, you want to leave a mark. But like, hey, I can work here until I'm 70 if I really want to, I guess. Or until no one's going to ask me to leave. There's no retirement. There's no checkout. There's no transfer. There's no impending orders coming that says I'm going to leave. And my team isn't changing, so we got to figure this out.
Right, and that was something that kind of opened my eyes too, was another point you make, is that the people that you work with in the civilian force, most of them have been there like 10, 15, 20 years. And in the military, unless you work with a lot of GS types, you don't run across that too often, where, because most people are there for 2, 3, 4 years and then they're on to the next assignment. So it is different when you're working with all these people and you actually have that choice to stay there for as long as they have, or more, or less. Whichever.
Right.
The office culture, though, you write a story about, and you did allude to this a little bit earlier, you write a story about telling your manager that a coworker needed to pull his head out of his rear.
Right.
And I guess
that wasn't me. That was one of my buddies. But yeah, but this is one of my buddies. Yeah. But yeah, when I started pulling some of the guys. Yeah, I want to be full disclosure on that. That was an interesting story. When I started kind of opening up to my friends, like, hey, well, get this. So yeah, But yeah, and I was kind by saying pull his head out of his rear because he really didn't say pull his head out of his rear.
Oh, of course.
Right. We all know where that's at. It's a very common military term or
But,
phrase.
I guess it comes down to knowing your audience for one.
Right.
But I've been in some civilian environments where that's completely normal. And I've been in, to contrast that, some military offices where, saying something like this is going to get you paperwork right on the spot.
Right. Very true. Yeah, I think that's less tolerated now in the Navy. We commonly refer to as the new Navy, right? So, and there's probably not there probably isn't an appropriate. That's not an appropriate phrase by any stretch, right? You shouldn't use it, I guess, right? But I could see in a situation where someone may want to use it, but right. And my buddy was telling me about that. That being said, the yeah, you have to know your audience, right? You really have to know your audience, and that's one. Once you get to friends, I have relationships at work now. I have relationships with even coaching little league and stuff like that, where you have to know what is good and what is bad, and what music you can play and what you can. The whole offense line is really interesting.
Yeah, and then I wonder, because I've been perplexed by this for a very long time before I even read your book. Did it really bother you when you became known by just your first name? When people started saying, "Hey, Maury," instead of using just your last name, rank and last name.
Yeah, I had grown accustomed to being, ALT, lieutenant, ops, divo. I've been called 1,000 things, right? But never Maury. The only people that would call me Maury, right, were senior officers for the most part, or some of my buddies within the wardroom in closed doors. But hey, it's Maury's turn to get on the Xbox or whatever else. Or Maury's got the next watch type thing. But as soon as the doors would open, you'd get. So that was about. To me, it was a very informal. It's very, very informal to be called by my first name, unless almost reserved, right? I mean, I coached, and I used to laugh about it because when I was on recruiting duty, I coached my kids' soccer team, so the kids and the parents would call me Maury, and then one of the parents would say, "Well, or should we call you Lieutenant, or should we call no, just the people that work for me call me Lieutenant." So to flip it, I get there and. I guess it's like that's the way it is, but I'm still having an issue with this. And I wrote about that in the book. It wasn't so much being called Maury, but actually calling myself, allowing them to call me Maury. I talked about it in emails. Like, I don't know what to say. I always use hey, Lieutenant, or hey, Divo on your email just to let everybody know. And they're, hey, Maury. Right. And that really just, that was a change. So, yeah, I don't know. Did it bother? I guess bothered is the right word, but not to like I was like flipping out or wanted to change it or something. But it's just something that I had to get used to. Probably right there, like along with putting your hands in your pockets and stuff like that.
Sure, and you also addressed the whole "yes sir, yes ma'am" thing there. But as I've found, it's not as faux pas, to use a "yes sir, yes ma'am," because a lot of times, even outside the military culture, people are brought up. Kids, I try to raise my kids
right
with respect, like in that same manner, to use "sir" and "ma'am." And
right.
so I find that that's not as much an issue. Occasionally there will be someone I say ma'am to, and she'll be like, "How old do you think I am?"
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. That's about where it comes from. It seems like the female perspective, maybe more so than the male perspective, with the ma'am thing, can get you.
So I guess maybe it's just the year that we're in, and it just seems a little old fashioned.
Probably. I think one of the reason I brought that up was that in the integration process, if you're trying to shed, because you do want to shed some of your military skin, that's a dead giveaway. If you're yes sir and no sir and everybody, no ma'am, yes ma'am, to me that alludes to maybe you haven't completely transitioned or integrated yet, and it's something that you should be aware of. There's a time and a place, right? I mean, a cop pulls me over, it's yes sir, no ma'am. It's appropriate. There is an appropriateness level to it, but just be cognizant of it. If you're doing it all the time, if you're doing that and wearing your core frames, you haven't transitioned too well yet. If you're, you still got your web belts, that you're working, it goes along there. Just be cognizant. If you every day, all the time might be an issue. People will talk about you behind your back.
And I want to touch on the TAP class, the transition GPS, because we all have to go through that, DoD mandated.
Yes, sir.
And both of us, in your book, and I've said it in my podcast before, we sort of have these caveats when we speak of TAPS, that we say it's a great program, but perhaps it's not as complete as we would like it to be.
Right.
Because they don't go into things like the integration process.
Right.
So is that something that you think they could add to the class, or how do you think that would work?
No, I think that is a complete. To be perfectly honest, that's a complete change in thinking, top down. I find that the TAP class probably needs the same type of, and I could be wrong. I mean, this is just one person's opinion, and who am I? I'm just some dude. Um, but I've done enough research, and I do a lot of talking with other individuals on LinkedIn. This is a very hot topic, the TAP class. Um, I think it's a whole change. It's a whole change in structure. Um, if you were to ask me, like, hey, what can we do? We take anywhere from, depending on the service, anywhere from 6 weeks to 12 weeks to integrate someone into the way we want them to be. Right. So Navy boot camp's 8 weeks. I'm not certain what Air Force is, but they're all between 8 and 12 weeks to teach you. This is how you wear your uniform. This is how you do that. And then on the way out, like, hey, we're gonna give you a week by someone that's works at our family service center or at the Fleet and Family Readiness or whatever acronym we want to give it, and they're going to give you 1 week to figure it all out, right? And ready, set, go. And we got these workshops, and it just seems kind of disingenuous in a way that, like, you gave 4 years, 5 years, and we took 2 of those months, 3 of those months to figure it out, but we're only going to give you 1 week on the way out. I think the title of your podcast is probably essentially what I would call it: a boots off. Right? So you had boot camp, boots off. Well, I'm going for 30 days. You get orders to figure out how to do it, and I wouldn't. We do decompression from when guys come back to deployment, and I think it's probably some similar. It's a similar fashion where we have to just write a person off, a young lady or a young man. It's like, all right, you're out. All right, there's the point of no return. If you're going to boots off or whatever we want to call it, then you got orders to this place. You got orders to, and maybe they're local. They're not I know boot camp's only in certain areas, but maybe we have joint base type things where it's 30 days long, man. It's we're gonna cover this, we're gonna cover that, and the sailor or the airman, soldier, marine is actually gonna get paid their last couple checks while they're in there integrating to get ready so that we could send them out. Because I think, and this I don't know, I'd love some research if anybody's listening to do some research. I'd like to know how much we could reduce homelessness and the veteran problems by giving. I mean, we got guys with PTSD or don't know they have PTSD, guys and ladies that are out there, and they get 1 week to figure it out. I mean, they've got all kinds of issues. I mean, it takes you months to figure out the VA process, and that's a slow moving target as it is. And it's like, well, you'll figure it out when you get out there. And here, this is how you tie your tie, though, and this is what your resume should look like. And you go to LinkedIn and type your name in and set up a password, and good luck. And it's like, well, yeah, if you have nothing wrong with you and you're sharp and you're paying attention and things are going swell for you, then that's probably okay. But I think that there's a lot of people that don't, and I think that that inability to actually get people to know I say it 4 or 5 times, and it's a phrase that I wish I didn't say. I need to come up with a different way to say it. So you don't know what you don't know, right? And so you're going to that TAP class to try and figure out what it is you don't know. And unfortunately, what you really want is to make sure that you're taken care of medically, right? Your health's probably your most important thing. So you want to listen to what the VA has to say. They come in for half a day, and you want to figure out how, if you're disabled, how to put in that claim and get it started as soon as possible. And so while you're working on that and you got your workbook, someone's in your ear about how to get a job, but you really don't care about that because you're trying to figure out what benefits you're entitled to, how you're going to take care of your family, and then hopefully when you come back up for air, someone's talking about how to apply for USA jobs or how to do something else. So you're missing stuff because it shouldn't be called TAP. It should be called drink from a fire hose. And hopefully you figure it out. It's not to say they don't put out good info though. You just need to do it 2 or 3 times.
Exactly. And I had airmen who were considering separation. They weren't 100% going to separate, but as soon as it entered their mind, I said, we should get you signed up for a TAP class.
Right.
Like right away. Because I went through it twice, I believe. I think I went through TAP twice. And that was probably a good idea because the first time was definitely not enough.
Right.
And there are many people who it's kind of a last minute item for them to check off.
Right.
They're not thinking about it because, well, for one, they have an entire checklist that they got to get taken care of. And they're like, oh, I have to do this tap class.
It's just another check in the box.
But the problem you'll run into if you have like a 30-day course on this, which I completely agree with, I think that's a good idea. But even for that 1 week of tap, supervisors, managers, they don't want to let their people go.
Yes, sir.
And because you can't really touch that person when they're in this class, because
so they say.
Right, so they say. Of course, that's not always the truth.
Right.
It's definitely a good foundation, but I can see how it can be built into something much better.
Another thing I'd like to see is if we could, if somehow the DoD or somebody, right, I see an opportunity for some company or something to make it an e-learning, make a lot of that stuff into modules, and you can access it through the va.gov website or something. So that you've been out a year and you want to see the benefits portion, or you want to see the TRICARE portion again, or you want to see that again. There's somebody up there that you can click on, put in your, you don't have a CAC anymore, but use your va.gov login and go and check it out. I'm like, I'm going to sit down and dedicate 45 minutes to this e-learning to listen to someone. Now that I've been out here and now I understand what this is, and I forgot about that, I could put these two things together because I can't exactly understand my notes from this big old book that I got. How do I do this again? How do I do that? And the resources are there. So I think there's an opportunity maybe to bridge that gap and just have something that the DoD puts out on e-learning that veterans can get at 6 months from when they get out, 2 years from 5 years from when they get out. You can go to va.gov and learn and try and figure out how to get your 9/11 benefits or VA or GI Bill benefits, maybe 9/11 or Montgomery. But it'd be so much nicer if everything was like that. How do I do this? And there's someone walking you through it. Or there's we do that. Again, I'll use my sports analogies. We do that. We have such great e-learning for these concussions now, and e-learning for how to do first aid and CPR so that you could coach a Little League team. I think the DoD can do the same thing for, here's a course on how, here's the the tap class again, broken into 14 different modules. Watch them in 45-minute increments or something. Stop and pause wherever you want.
Absolutely. And I want to come back to that a little bit in a way, but first we got to talk about this myth because I definitely heard it too when I was getting out.
Yeah.
Where I might think to use my medical coverage when transitioning to a new job, using my medical coverage as a salary negotiation tool.
Right.
That's not typically the case, I guess.
Right.
But have you ever seen it work?
No. I ended up talking to around, I think 27 people for the book, friends and everybody else, and I asked them about it. And that's why I ended up around third or fourth question in. I was like, hey, so I think there's this myth out there, and that's that came up with it, that no one, and it has to do with insurance. We don't, and I think that's one of the issues that military members don't understand. Even when you're a young kid, and if you do your 4 years and get out, the coverage that you get in the military is ridiculously awesome. Maybe you get a lot of Motrin thrown at you or whatever, but everything's free. And it's not the case in the civilian sector. So you're under the assumption that if I have some coverage, you just don't understand insurance. That's why the average military person does not understand insurance. So you think when you come into the civilian sector, your job, if you're working for a company, is part of a policy. You're a small cog in a huge policy that's already out. So if you decide not to opt in, okay, fine. They still have 1,000 people that are being covered, so that you're not saving the company any money. They weren't paying for you because you just came on board. So why would they give you money when you just came on board? Well, you're going to cost us your nickels on the dollar for a huge policy. So it doesn't. It's a myth. We'd like to think it does. Maybe for the independent contractor that hires 3 people, you think, oh, you're retired, so or you're using your VA benefits, so that'll help me. I'll give you an extra $2 an hour or something.
Right.
But nothing. I think that's probably the thing. Maybe we could teach, and members about that. I don't know if it's worth it, but
Well, it's different. Kind of ironic because that point actually came up in a tab class that I was in.
Oh, really?
Like, you can you can always try this out, but
right.
Maybe
and
it
the
does
other thing
work.
was there's another myth that I left out, and there's like chapters that just didn't make it, and 10 was a round number. The same thing was like the security clearance. I had that myth busted for me right in tab class when someone had asked the same, similar to what you said, and one of the contractors was like, well, no, because we have to open it anyways, and you're not saving us any money. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to get any money. So even the active clearance that you have or trying to maintain it or keep it, they still have to do the work in NACIS or JPAS or whatever the programs are to keep it anyway. So you're not really reducing them. It's one of these things where a lot of people, oh yeah, you need to have it. It's like, well, yeah, you just need to be a trustworthy individual that can get it, and then you're hireable, you're employable, but you don't really save them any money. Maybe I don't know, maybe.
But would that security clearance put you ahead of someone who doesn't have that
Yeah.
clearance?
Yeah, but what the argument the contractor made is they're only going to talk to people that have that clearance anyway. So when you come into the interview, you're going to get your resume. Okay, so we're going to talk to 5 people that all have the clearance anyways. So all you did was make it past the cut to get in there. You're not going to save them any money because they already are going to hire someone with the clearance most likely anyway. And you're talking about a small portion of the American workforce. I guess global workforce, if you want to make it even a smaller portion, they require a security clearance. So you're already the people you're competing with are going to have that clearance. Someone doesn't go to school and say, hey, I want to be a contractor at Boeing and work in that. What do I got to do? Well, you need a clearance. Okay, well, let me go and get it. They may, but they're probably not going to beat the person that's getting out of the military, the 5 or 7 people that have that job that are applying anyway, plus all the people that are internal. So it's not it's nice. It's nice, but it's up there. I don't know. That's my own. That's just what I've seen or what I've heard, and I'll take it for what it's worth. I'm not an expert in that. I haven't hired anybody because of a clearance. Let's put it that way. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's just what I've heard.
Well, so
Right.
that's one thing that you say could have been in the book that was not didn't make the cut. There are some other topics that you say could have had a
Yeah.
place that are not included. You do touch a little bit on the lack of camaraderie
Right.
in a civilian workforce, but there's also the whole VA benefit application and the
Yeah.
disability rating. Do you have any wisdom to give on these topics here?
I'm going to tell you that I used DAV to help me through that process, and best choice I made. It was super, super easy. I had someone to talk to. There was an advocate that really, and maybe I'm sure that it depends on who you get. I actually, since I was on recruiting duty, I was out at Scott Air Force Base. So the team out there and Scott, the DAV team, was just fabulous. Those guys, they cared about me. They helped me out. They looked at stuff. I was a little nervous because you have to sign a power of attorney over to them. Like, am I
Oh,
really doing
wow.
the right? Well, because they're going to advocate for you, right? So they're gonna do everything for you. But man, I tell you, the minute I went to them, I had appointments scheduled with the quickness. I had my paperwork was done. Come see us. They did it. They don't leave until we're done. So that was like my first introduction to like the way things could be if people were there, and they were truly there to make sure things happen. So probably right in line with what you're doing, with what I'm doing with the book. It's we just want to help veterans navigate a process, and we know how to navigate this process. So jump on our back. We'll help you. And so, yeah, that would be my wisdom. And I just chose DAV because they showed up. They showed up, and I talked to them and a couple others. And I'm not going to sit here and badmouth anybody about anything because I truly believe everybody's heart's in the right place. But I think the advocates know more about this than you do. And I think when you're trying to get a disability rating, that to get as much help as you can, hey, go to the experts. These guys in there, they'll look at it. They'll give you a free look. They don't charge you any money, right? They didn't get one thing from me. They just genuinely wanted to help. There's some dude in an office that looked at my medical record and said, all right, dude, this is how we're going to do it. And we did it. And I got a rating and I was happy. And they gave me a sticker at the end. It was awesome.
That sounds amazing because that's something that, of course, I know of the DAV, but I didn't know that that was an option. I didn't know they were there to help in that respect. It's just
Oh, yeah.
not anything that's ever come up in my conversations or in my transition process.
Yeah, and there's a bunch. AmVets is out there. And they're all good. They're all good. You can end up, joining 10 or 11 different groups if you don't watch it. Give them some money because they're all doing
Right.
great stuff, and they'll all advocate for you. They're all dudes like me and you, and they're all going to help out, or they just know the system. I also found that one of the biggest things was before I started transitioning, I started asking people that were going to TAP, hey, what'd you learn? What are you working on? Where are you going? Because I wanted to see, essentially where they stumbled, so when I was ready, when it was my turn, I just did it right. Or I did it, hey, this guy messed up here, so I'm not going to mess up there. If there's one, like you just asked me, what's one thing you could fix? Or you could do, you would, what's something you can offer for advice? Go get this done early. So Yeah, I mean that would be my advice. And I get everybody's different. It's your medical, it's your health. So I don't want to tell. I hate people telling me what they would do if they were me. So I don't ever want to put that on anybody, and I try not to do that. But I would strongly recommend that you look at these people for any type of assistance, these groups, because they're there to help. That's not to say the VA won't. I think the VA is overmanned or is undermanned and overworked. So if you can get someone pulling for you, that maybe you can get your stuff to the top of a pile. Go for it, man.
It definitely sounds like a viable avenue that I kind of wish I had considered before. But that's why I wanted to have this podcast, is so we can talk to veterans who have been there and who have the experience and can pass this good information along. It also leads me to my next thing here. There are two things you absolutely wanted people to take away from your book. One of those is that the veteran is not alone.
Right.
Second is that once he or she has their footing in the civilian life, to help out the next transitioning vet, to pay it forward.
Mentor. Yep.
So, how do you do this? Obviously, you wrote the book. That's one way.
Right.
But how do you find these communities of mentors, and how do you help others?
There is, without question, LinkedIn for one. I think that every veteran, as you start to transition, needs to be on LinkedIn, and just as a resource, just so you know, or you can at least read. You don't have to be active on there. You probably don't need to be active on LinkedIn, but you need to join some groups and join some and listen to what people are saying. One of the job that I got now that I got came from LinkedIn, and a lot of the I never posted in any of the veteran groups that I was in, but I was watching other people post and asking questions, and again watching these hurdles that these people were having, and then I just read them and kind of socked them away in the back. So when it came up for my time to get an interview, write a resume, and do these things, I was sharp, I was solid. I just learned from those in front of me, that's where I get the majority of my work. Since I wrote the book and since separating, I've made tons of friends out there. I cannot tell you how many veterans are out there that will help you. A vet will help a vet. I mean, I cannot. I mean, you did it for me here, right? I saw your podcast. I think I saw you saw this podcast on LinkedIn, and so I was like, all right, that's cool. And I looked at it, and then I listened to one of them. You did the one with the kid that was on the carrier, and I got Garzone.
Yeah, Christian Garzone. Yeah,
that dude's hysterical, and and I was like, these guys got it going on. This is cool. And I actually, as I listened to that, I was writing the book, and I was like, I've got to reach out to this dude, and maybe he'll give me a little commercial. If he blows up, he can give 5 minutes to give the book some credence so that I can get my word out there, because these guys are going to blow up because they're hysterical, and there's a bunch of guys out there that need to hear this. So yeah, just there, I saw that. So I think when, and I know I'm taking a long time to answer this question, but get out there. Vets will help vets. And so when you hit me back, you're like, yeah, this is what it's at. I'm like, hey, read my book. If you like it, let's do it. And if it sucks, tell me it sucks, and then we'll at least you'll help me out. So you gave back, and we're giving back now. I've got other friends out there that are, they're doing veteran meetups all over the place. And believe you me, if you look at my book, anybody looks at my book, there's no copyright thing on the front. I did that on purpose. There's the first couple, there's nothing. It starts right on, because I don't care if you plagiarize it. Please, if you want to make it your idea, if the myth is your idea, fine. Teach another vet. Have at it. Go for it. It doesn't matter. I put it in the book. If you get absolutely nothing out of my book, give it to someone else that might. Mm-hmm. Because that's really what it's all about. So these veteran groups, they're doing vet meetups, they're doing things, and I'll just ask them, hey, can I send a couple books out to you, and you can give them away as door prizes so that you can get some legitimacy to your group, and you can have some door prizes that might get a couple more people that come to your action there. No, but seriously, that's where it's at. Any way that I can help the vets, and so I see that as double give back.
And again, on the back of the book, it does say not an advice column, not a how-to book, but it does have these good takeaways. Is there anything else that you'd like to say about the transition integration on this podcast here while I've got you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, without question. Is that veterans know what it takes to be successful. You really do. So just go and do it. Just go and do it. You're gonna have to work harder you're used to doing more with less, and that situation at the beginning, the first couple months, weeks, maybe even a year or so, you're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to do more with less. You're not gonna know all the information, but just do it. You're fine. You do have superpowers, and I call them superpowers because they truly are. The ethic that you have, the ability to show up on time, the ability to go to work, I get complimented at work all the time. I've been working almost 2 years, right? And I get complimented for, man, you haven't taken more than a day off yet. Well, yeah, because I have a job to do, and I don't have any vacation. My kids are in school, so why don't you just take a day off or two for yourself? I don't need to, right? I mean, I'm not getting shot up, not under a tube. This is pretty easy. Show up, drive, drink some coffee, check some email, do some talking. There's really no reason to take a day off. And what I found is that the other veterans in my office or in where I work at are kind of the same way. We're just working here, we're doing our thing. But do it. I mean, I just, when in doubt, if you don't know what to do, do something. That's probably some lousy advice, but you're gonna be just fine. Just do it. Don't sit on the sidelines. Go and play. Ask for the ball. Do all the sports analogies you want. Ask for the ball. Take the shot. Be the ball hog, because that's what you're capable of doing, and that's what you can do. Don't be afraid to take the risk. Don't be afraid to go for it, and just do it.
Again, the book is called Atten-Hut, 10 Things Veterans Should Know Before They Enter the Civilian Workforce. I know you can find it online. Where should people go to get this book?
I'll tell you what. You can get it on Amazon, right? So you just type in Atten-Hut. You can find it on Amazon there, and you can get it on Kindle if you want. We just recently put it on Kindle, but I'll do one more because I am truly committed to the success of the veteran. Whenever this podcast comes out, and it'll be online forever, I suppose. So the first 3 people that hit me up on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I heard you on Boots Off. Can I get a free copy?" I'll mail it to you. No cost to you, so just hit me up, but you got to be my friend on LinkedIn or whatever is link with me, I guess is what it's called, and we'll discuss. So it doesn't matter whether you're out, in, whatever. And any veteran causes, like I say, vet groups or people at TAP Class, GPS, whoever's listening to this, I challenge you to push me on how bad I want to get this out. They challenge my generosity. I want this book read. I will ship to you. I will help you. We will figure it out. I just don't want to lose any money on it. I'm not looking to make money off the book. I'm really trying to get the work. So call me, hit me up, email me, and I will get this book to you or whatever it is. It's most important that it's read and that someone gets something out of it. So if you think that you're having a little thing and you want a book or 2 or you want 5 or you're holding a little class and you think this might be something, I want to give you the book to give to your people so that it'll legitimize your process. So hit me up. LinkedIn's probably good. Maury Castaneda. I have a website, helmleadership.com, if you want to go to that. But I'm here to help. Challenge me on that.
All right, so let's get you some LinkedIn connections and get your message out there to all the other vets who are in the same boat or submarine that we've been in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing I do want to mention is probably the best feedback I got from the book was actually from a young man that I worked with his dad, who was at the end. It was I won't say his name, I don't have permission, but the dad worked at MEPS, right? And his son's in the Navy, and his son's going to get out or was thinking about getting out. So he bought the book for my son, probably a charity case for me. Go, yeah, no more. I'll buy the book from you to my son. And the kid read it, and the kid's staying in. I call him a kid. The sailor's staying in. And he sent me an email saying, thanks. What you told me I'm not ready to experience because I realize I'm having a good time. I realize that I'm not ready to experience what you're experiencing yet and what's going on here. And just that blew my mind. It was actually, I gave one back. He's in there doing that. So that I like I said, it's for everybody. It's not for just anybody getting out. I mean, if you work with veterans, maybe you can figure out why they're so kooky. You can help them or whatever the situation might be, or why they're always pissed off or whatever the situation is. I don't know. But
sure.
It's for everybody.
And that brings us all the way back full circle to when you first thought about getting out and your mentors told you otherwise.
Yes, sir. Without a doubt.
All right, Maury. Well, I appreciate you coming on with your message and your time. If there's ever anything else you want to say, let me know. And
yeah, likewise. If you need anything from me, I mean, I appreciate you having me on and letting me talk, bloviate here for a little bit. But man, I really just want to thank you for doing what you do and doing the podcast. I think what you do, and like I said, there's some humor in there. It's right up the alley. You're helping way more people than you know of. I found you just by going, just by doing some searches and some things. And so you don't stop. You keep charging because you're doing a great thing for all the veterans and for everybody else out there too. So you should be proud, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And same to you. All right. So we'll talk to you again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thanks again. Take care.
Talk to you later, brother.
You heard him. Log into LinkedIn, find Maury, and ask him about his book. Tell him you heard about it on the Boots Off podcast. Can we get one of those special offer codes, though? That would be cool, right? Click the microphone in the top corner, type in Boots Off, and you'll get a free copy. No, but really, there's a lot of good info in this book, or I'm sure if you just have questions about civilian integration, he'd be happy to talk. You can check him out further at helmleadership.com, and Atten-Hut is also available on Amazon. Maybe you know someone who's getting out or having trouble with the transition integration process. That's a big change, and it's always good when vets help vets. Thanks for listening. As always, feel free to share the episode and nominate yourself or someone you know to be a guest on the show. You can find the Boots Off podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and if you value what we're doing and would like to contribute to the mission, consider a contribution to the Boots Off Patreon account. Again, this is a side project, no cost to listeners, but it does cost to produce. So any little donation helps sustain the podcast. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time here on the Boots Off podcast.